Welcome, friends, clients, family, to This Month in Arts Marketing with Confluence Art Solution. This month, we're going to be talking about data that you want to look at from just your most recent season, if your season just closed, and or data if you're currently in season and you're planning for next season, data that you want to collect that will help you with your decision making and knowing what your payoffs are when it comes to your ticket sales, your email, your social media, and your ads.
So, one of the things I've been thinking about lately as we've watched different clients transition from wrapping up the 24-25 season and starting to get into the 25-26 season is making sure that they are kind of tying a bow on all of the data that they could have been collecting this past season and getting ready to kind of pitch and justify the marketing efforts that they did last season to make sure that we can get our budgets and our goals lined up for next season. And I was wondering what you guys think are the most important data points, KPIs, measurements, things to observe that we want to take forwards. That way, when people ask us questions about what we're doing, we can say, this is why it's beneficial and show the success we had this year, show the things we want to improve on in next year.
I would say it from your sales standpoint. So your ticket sales, whatever they are, go make sure you grab all of your final sales numbers. Most systems at the very basics, you can get your total revenue and your total tickets. That way you've at least got a starting point for next season to kind of start measuring against, and so you're ready. If you can, and you can get a separation out of, if you happen to do subscriptions, what were the subscription tickets sold, what were the single tickets sold, so you can kind of start looking at your percentages. Because I think a big part of helping with your goal setting is really having a realistic idea of what your ticket sales are, subscription versus single tickets. A step further, again, if your system allows it, and most do that, if you did any kind of discounting, what your sales were with those codes. Most everything works off of a promo code now, and you can usually get a promo code report. If you can get it by individual production, great. But if it's all in one, then it's all in one. And then that'll help you make decisions on what kind of discounts you should do next year. Maybe ones that you don't. Maybe there are ones you do every year. Like there's like a discount that you give to a particular vendor or group every single year. And it's a lot of work because maybe you're doing a flyer for it, or something like that. And so you're putting a bunch of effort into it. And is there a payoff for it? And this will help you make that kind of a decision.
I think payoff is a huge word to pull out of what everything you just said too, is it's not just saying this is what we spent or this is what we did. What was the payoff? Because that is what should make the decision. Lynette, when we have done workshops in the past, there have been categories of payoffs that you have told people to look out for. Can you remind us what those are that you like to remind people are like valuable payoffs from things?
Yes. Financial resources, time resources, building relationships, if it's emotionally draining, and if it is mission driven. The worksheet that we have helps you prioritize like what category it falls in and identify things that should just be eliminated, identify things that need further evaluation, and you might need to collect more data over the next season to eliminate it for the following season or add more resources to it for the following season, or if it's building your relationship. So that's kind of how we evaluate it. Sometimes you'll do something that does cost money and does cost a lot of time, but is fulfilling your mission. So you keep doing that. Other times you'll do something that is costly and does a lot of time, is not fulfilling your mission, and it's not building any relationships in any way, shape, or form from a development standpoint, meaning audience development, patron development, fundraising development, then you just need to stop doing it. So it does help to take some time, especially in the summer when most people are a little bit less busy, to kind of evaluate where you are on task-based workload.
I think what that comes down to is like before you are gathering this information in order to present it to people, whether it be like your leadership team or your board or funders or anything like that, it's about like going into your own work and what you've done for yourself. And then it also might help you start to know like what you want to prioritize when you go into places to ask for funding or budget or permission to do any of these things, is like then you know the tasks that are worth your time and that you want to push to get approval on, and then the things that you're like, you know what, even though we've been doing this in the past, it's not worth it.
That happens a lot. We've always done it this way, so we're going to keep doing it this way. This is not the year to do that. This is the year, this is the time to really, really evaluate how you're spending your marketing budget, how you're spending your time, and how you're fulfilling your mission. From an ad standpoint, or just even a social media, like organic engagement
Mhm.
standpoint and all of that, what would you look for when
Mm.
you're
I
looking at?
love I love the reminder about organic because I live in the ad world so much that I think about the trackable statistics that we get from these digital platforms in the sense of I can see how many times it was viewed or how many times it was clicked. If you have your pixels set up right, we might even be able to see like the number of purchases that came off of something. But when it comes to organic, that's just as important because people are seeing that probably more frequently than any of the digital advertising that you're doing. And so looking at either the basic measurements of just likes and engagement on an organic post in maybe even going deeper into whatever's provided, especially if you're like a business profile, to see other kind of engagement with it, to see what kind of posts did best or what days of weeks maybe the engagement was a little bit higher. And so again, decisions are being made based on what performed well for you and your audiences. If I were to look at ads, definitely looking at ROI, the return on investment, in the sense of how much did you spend on an ad and how much do you think you can attribute to that ad going out. Now, again, if you don't have pixels set up and don't have direct sales tied to those ads, it's going to be a little bit harder to track, but looking at click-through rates is what we like to look at the best. On a platform like Meta, even Spotify, they have CTR click-through rates. We want to see on Meta, it tends to be over 3%. We would be happy. On Spotify, I believe it's over 0.3% if you're set up for a clicks campaign, because obviously that's a platform that's not quite as set up for clicking away from. But we are learning in the Spotify world that video campaigns are doing very, very well. So even though it does not feel like a video forward platform, it's that reminder that things are always changing and there's always more to learn and more to test out and more to try out.
You can go into your insights on Meta and search by engagement rate. And I would do that to start like brainstorming content ideas for next year.
Love that.
Like, that is just a really simple way. All this did well. Let's just figure out how to do it again.
The secret tip is if things are evergreen, if it wasn't directly tied to like a performance with specific dates, if it was a great piece of evergreen content, you can reshare that again down the line.
Yeah.
Just literally copy paste. You could use it again. What would you guys say is enough time has passed to reshare a piece of content? Because it's not a science, but I'm curious what you guys think.
Reshare it on stories whenever you want. Like, I
Yep.
feel that would be fine. As
Yes.
far as like on the wall, to me, it's how often you post. If you only post once a week, I wouldn't share it for probably 6 months. If you post multiple times a week, then probably 3. You also could put it into an ad. If it performed that well organically, then find $50, $100, $200 and push it out as an ad.
Boosting does not count.
I have a t-shirt.
We are making t-shirts that say it.
And it says we are never boosting ads like ever.
And looking at what performs well, I've found when I've got clients who have asked others in their organization to participate in the content creation,
Mhm.
whether it's a musician or it's your artistic director, they're nervous about it and they often wonder, did this do anything? And I can tell you right now across the board, it does do something. But now you have the data to back it up so that when you ask for it again and when they might give you a little pushback on it, you can say, but did you see that video that I did interviewing you about the upcoming production? That was the best piece of content we had the entire time.
New faces, and then honestly just faces in general. If it comes down to being able to ask somebody in the office or in your community to help with a video versus making something on Canva. Again, this isn't just our opinion. This is coming from what we see on click-through rates, engagement rates, and data from our clients and other organizations that we get to see studies on. We may have gotten off on a little bit of a tangent, but the key here is all of these recommendations and things come from data that we are collecting because we're not just guessing on things.
What about emails, Mel? Is there anything you look at from an email standpoint?
Oh, sure. I mean, at the very basic, it's your open rates and your clicks rate. I would look at your emails, and do maybe a little bit of a comparative. You can, if you're in certain systems, MailChimp happens to be one where you can do this. You can sort out your data and you can, from like a high to low, and see what emails perform well and what messages do well. And then when you look into like an individual email itself, and most of them allow for this, it's a click map. So what in the email got clicked the most? Was it the button to go buy tickets? That's what you hope for, right? Or was it something else in the email that people clicked more? Are you designing your email in a way that will get people to take an action? Because that's what it's for. Your emails, there are certainly should be informative pieces to an email, especially if it's like your monthly newsletter. But there are a lot of emails that are just action oriented, and are people taking an action? And that's really what you're kind of looking for. Did your call to action actually create action?
Which I
Yeah.
think comes to knowing your goals on top of all of this. So we're tracking data and we want you to look at these, but what are you looking for? You need to know what your goals are. Is it ticket sales? Is it donations? Is it just people learning that the show exists so they have clicked the button to learn more on your website? Because that changes what statistics you're looking at and what measurements you're looking for.
I recommend like using different language all the time. Test what works, not just tickets, right? Buy here, get today, reserve your seat, learn more. Like test the different pieces of language that you can use to get somebody to take an action, to see what is the best response to invite somebody to come to your show and buy a ticket.
There's so much to look at. Language, design, font size, subject line, media, and that's just email, across all digital platforms. There's so much to consider, which is why this is a very time-consuming job.
And that's what I say, break it down. If this is your off season, if it's not, and you're in the middle of your season, obviously let's wait until you have a little bit more downtime. 1 day a week, take an hour and jump into one of these. Look at your tickets sales or your membership sales. The following week, take another, hour out of your week and look at what your emails did. Don't try to do it all at once, because that's when it feels like especially overwhelming. But if you take 4 weeks and you just do an hour a week looking at it, that is time well spent.
I kind of want to add into that. Okay, so you're thinking about what you can grab now, thinking about what you want to get, and you're thinking about the future. If you take that hour a week, record that information, right? Keep it somewhere. Maybe it means something, maybe it doesn't, but at least you've recorded down some of this data, some of the basics about your social media, your ads, your email, and your ticket sales. Once a week, just a little spreadsheet with all that data. And then as you collect it over time, you'll start to see patterns.
It's amazing what you can tell. Like, we track everything from ticket sales at least 20 weeks out, and we can tell where you are in relation to if your show is on track because we have data.
So if people have already wrapped up and there's only limited access to data that they have right now from this past season, to get people ahead of the game for next season, what would you say are the biggest, more difficult measurements that they can do throughout this year, that it's like, okay, this is your goal for the coming years to keep on top of those things?
From a ticket sales standpoint, start tracking your sales weekly. If you can try to build something that's 20 weeks out, great. If you can't, then from whatever the moment you start advertising, start tracking your weekly sales. So where were you at this week in time? That will help you look at trends. And you can do a lot with that. It's your revenue and your seats. With that, you can track your average ticket price to make sure that you aren't discounting too much and that you've hurt yourself with your discounts. And then as you look at each week, you can see what's your week over week increase. Because what should be happening is every week you're selling a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more until you've closed out your production and you've hit that goal. If you start to see a dip, like if you're up, and then you've plateaued or you drop a little bit, then you need to make a change. And it'll drive, what is that change? Do you need to spend more money on ads? Do you need to do another post? Do you need to send an email? It's really two numbers that you need, and you can do so much with just those two numbers.
I am going to add on to Mel's and say track those discount codes. Don't use one discount code for everything, track it. My biggest pet peeve is last minute fire sale discounts. A lot of the times they don't work. You only move a few tickets, but they have long-term repercussions from a sales standpoint and from a buying early for future patron standpoint. If you are doing that, or if someone in your organization is making you do that, that's where this data comes in, is showing like, hey, we're doing it. It's not even moving that many tickets or memberships or whatever you're trying to sell last minute, and it's actually causing later and later buying behavior. It actually usually backfires. So that's all I'm going to say about that. So what about you, Megan?
I think in ad world, it would be about like what performs well when and for how long. Different clients I've seen have learned that like cast announcements placed at different times leading up to a show garner different enthusiasm. And so if you know that some specific piece of content, let's say it's like your cast announcement for a show, is a really big selling point for every production, then doing that a little bit early to try and keep those sales growing week over week and not waiting on that for too long, or acknowledging that your ads run really well for the first 6 days, and then by the seventh day, performance tapers off. That means that you have to start flipping your content in your ads every 6 days or so, paying attention to kind of the minute details of advertising rather than just saying, here's a couple bucks, hands off, hope that it sells some tickets. Tracking the performance of your ads that way you can hone in on your content and your messaging and your spend to make sure that it's prioritized for ticket sales.
And I'm going to chime in with Megan and say she's talking about digital advertising. So if you are doing traditional advertising, now is the time to add a discount code. I'm telling you, yes, add a discount code specific to that medium that you are advertising in, so we can see if you got any sales off of it. Most traditional media is more expensive than digital advertising, which we don't typically recommend it to most of our clients because they have smaller budgets. But if you are like being told you have to advertise in the local paper or on the radio, make sure that you can track how that ad performs to the highest extent that you can track it. Because listeners, like average listeners, is not that's not a good measurement. So, and we
The
found
ones that you would get from the salespeople at those traditional media organizations.
we found, at least here locally, that we took out a very large ad that was very expensive in the local paper. And I think we sold, I don't know, Mel, if you remember, but I think it was 4 tickets off of this. Like, yeah, it was 4 tickets off of a $4,000 ad. Like,
Versus when I can say that I've seen clients on Meta spend 200 and sell dozens of tickets.
yeah.
So,
And that's the justification that you might need to take to management or to your
mhm.
board and say, like, yes, I know you think that we need to be advertising in our local paper, but here's what we actually sold off of it. And it cost us this much money. Our ROI is so negative, we can't justify that spend anymore.
We've said it before, we'll continue to say it again. It's not because we don't want you to be on the radio, in the newspaper, in local magazines, on the billboards, in any of those traditional spaces. It's just that based on your budget, prioritize your money into digital placements first. And then when all of that hopefully leads to incredible financial growth for you and your organization, then we can start working that stuff in.
And we work primarily with smaller organizations who don't have very large budgets. So we have to really make sure we're spending the money in the most efficient way possible. That's it. We'll see you soon. We do have a lunch and learn coming up in a couple weeks on the 26th. We're going to talk about how to budget for marketing. So you can hit our website and register there, and we will hope to see you there. Thanks.